tell me you now have 5 new friends, 2 of whom are fellows, 2 full members, and 1 associate. 5, or else you will not get my gift. Can we quickly do that, please? And you must know where they work, know the name of their wife and children and their husbands. It's full disclosure. If your neighbor is still sitting, if your fellow colleague is still sitting, please encourage them to stand, move around. Some people are still seated. Make sure you collect call cards, please. Make sure you introduce yourself. I hope the last time I saw you was not at the conference. Dr. Lai. Some of us are not coming to the front where we have our past presidents. Don't be afraid, please. It's a rare privilege for us to have our past presidents in the house, and we truly honor their presence. It's a very interesting one. Make sure you are making new friends. If you are seeing new members elected into council, it's a good time to meet them as well. You have in our midst new elected members of governing council. We have so many people from the Great Lion Center. Remember, you need to have 2 fellows on your list. I want to assume that those that are seated have gone around and they have their 5-man list. Tunde Bango, it's a pleasure to see you.
One, two, 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 just one, two, one, two, one, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, just one, two, just one, two, just one, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. One, two, testing, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Um, can we please put our hands together as we have our seats? We can do better than that. Can we please put our hands together as we have our seats? Okay. I will. To officially start us in today's event, it will be very critical for me to honor our very senior colleagues that are in the house. And as a a resounding round of applause. In our midst, we have two very senior past presidents of the Institute who have started to grace us with their presence today. First on the list, I'd like us to please put our hands together for Mr. Victor Ebrujalo, one of our immediate. I'd like us to please put our hands together. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. And as well, we have with us Mr. Abiola Popola, who is also one of our. Thank you very much, sir. We are very happy to have you in our midst. Also in our midst is one of our newly elected council members, Mr. Peter Adeyeri. He's still trying to make up his list of 5 people. Okay, thank you very much. Also in our midst, like I said, we've been blessed with such experience and depth in work. We have some of our fellows in our midst as well. As I call their names, I'd like us to please put our hands together as well. We have with us Mrs. Bumi Fabamo. Thank you very much, ma'am. We also have Mr. Emmanuel Imafidon with us. Thank you very much, sir. Barrister Femi Mokiko is also with us. Thank you very much, sir. and then Mrs. Catherine Noka. Thank you very much, ma'am. As we continue, I would like to call to the stage to lay the foundation for what we are doing today. Why are we even gathered on a cold Thursday like this to discuss advocacy? It's my pleasure to invite the Director for Strategy, Advocacy and Strategy at Stakeholder Relations, Dr. Olaiwola Oladapo. Let's put our hands together, please.
Thank you, Genga. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, past presidents, president himself. We were at a program yesterday evening. We weren't sure he was still going to be able to turn up this morning. We appreciate your presence, sir. Fellows of the Institute, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, we want to thank you for making it a date with us this morning. Why are we here? Why are we gathered? Why have we called us to what we call the HR Leaders Advocacy Roundtable? As the HR community, we have actually discovered that oftentimes we are always at the end of the curve reacting to policy enactments of government. And we all know across the globe, not just in Nigeria, that government is the biggest business in the sense that the policy of government may impact us positively or negatively. So we have decided as an institute that we don't want to start to play the catch-up game when it comes to policy enactment of government. We want to be at the end of that curve where we are dictating the direction of those policies if possible. The case as it is currently is that we wait until those policies are enacted and then we react. And in recent times, in the last 18 months, within the Nigerian space, there are a whole lot of policies that have been enacted. Some are in the process of being signed into bills. And we know it's going to impact on the outcomes of the HR profession itself in terms of what we do as HR professionals. And so we felt we needed to have where HR leaders who take decisions on HR can come together to dialogue, to have conversations, to engage and ensure that, while some of these laws are being contemplated upon, whilst discussions are going on at the parliament about them, we can start to influence also the direction of those policies. And for those ones that have been enacted, we also want to be ready to take action as HR in terms of what do we need to do different so that we are not victims of these policies. And that's the reason why we are gathered here. Hopefully, we want to make sure that we can take this forward to become the policy advocacy platform for Cipm, where the HR leaders are also actively contributing, to advocating policy. We're sorry for the slight movement around. I guess it's simply because of the rain. So we're excited to have all of us come in this morning, the cream de la cream of the HR community and in Cipm. We're excited that we have made it a date to start to take our destiny in our hands. We're going to have in our midst keynote speakers who are experts in different areas, who will be speaking to us on the key issues that affect the policy environment within the HR space. And we're also going to have panelist discussions to handle questions from the House on areas that we feel we need answers to, or where we feel we can get better guidance, strategic guidance on what we need to do going forward. So I want to encourage us to relax, let's learn, let's engage, let's network, and above all, let's have fun. It's a very wet morning, but we trust that your time with us this morning will be well invested. So thank you once again for turning up, and I wish us wonderful and fruitful deliberations as I hand over to Benga Tutori.
I I want to start by correcting myself. I omitted something very critical earlier. My sincere apologies. And also want to quickly mention we're having a bit of a situation. This has never happened before, but there seems to be water coming into the hall from the back. It's been addressed, but we are all safe, right? Um, just so I can still keep my offer letter at the institute. I omitted welcoming the new president earlier. It wasn't intentional in any way, but I know I'll get my knock on the head later in the day. I'd like us to please put our hands together as we welcome the newly elected president and chairman of council, Mr. Wale Adejiro, MCIPM, as he gives his speech.
He got the knock on the head. Well, first, let me apologize that we have you welcomed me already, and I appreciate that. Without wasting your time, we are here for a very important event. So let me first of all humbly welcome to our midst our past president here present, Mr. Victor Brajolo, FCIPM, Mr. Abiola Popola, FCIPM. And members of council that are here. I could see Mr. Deyeri, I could see Busola. By the way, she's my sister, so the surname is shared somehow. Don't worry, I know the surname. I could see Barrister Mokiko. I could see my sponsor, Mrs. Pabanwo. So I want to say a very big congratulations to all of us, our fellows here present. I could see so many of them, some that I have not seen for a long, long time. Mr. Imakidon is there. I could see so many others in the hall. So I want to say thank you for your continuous support to our institute. I could see my big auntie here. You're welcome. So all our chairmen of PPCAs, all our esteemed members, our HR leaders, every other protocol duly observed. First, I want to congratulate us for a successful 58th annual general meeting. I hope you are proud of what we achieved together, so you can give yourself a huge round of applause. While I quickly congratulate our new set of leaders, I want to also offer my sympathy that we all have a huge task ahead of us. Our 2019-2021 strategic plan is audacious. However, we will enhance it to even make it more audacious. Rest assured that we'll be calling on you, we'll be disturbing you for your support, for your wisdom, for your network, for your help to achieve the great vision of making CIPM the foremost people management institute in Africa that's respected across the world. Our desire in the immediate term is to see a CIPM that satisfies all, especially our members. We want to take away all the frustrations that members have been expressing over the years. We've done a lot. Our leaders, past and present, have done so much. A lot more we will do. If we all have apps for our banks and we could check our balances and make transactions on our handheld devices, nothing stops CIPM from providing similar thing to all our members. And that we are going to do. GT has his knock already. Gbenga Tutoe, I call him GT. His knock is saddled with that headache. He's a millennial and he's our director. So we want him to marry the two together and give us an app that will take away our frustration. So we're going to satisfy our members. We will ensure that CIPM is attractive throughout Africa. We want to have members pan-Africa. People in Ghana, people in Zambia, people in Kenya, people in South Africa should find value in what we offer digitally, online, and be willing to part with their rands, with their CFA and other currencies to be our members. It looks impossible, but I tell you, that's what we're going to achieve. We want to have influence with the government of our base country, Nigeria. Each time you think about CIPM, think of the way you want CIPM to be perceived. What we are starting this morning is part of the journey that will give us the voice, the message to deliver. We want to be proactive about it. We don't want to scramble around when things happen. We want to have holding statements that will properly channel our position as a professional institute on every issue that is of significant interest to our country. But to achieve that effectively, not only would we need the message and the voice, we will need to also have the cloud. And for us, the cloud starts by having the right network at the seat of government and having the right presence in FCT in Abuja. Our founding fathers that got us this space did so several decades ago when the seat of power was here at Marina. That had moved. We need to move with times. And I believe you will support our dream because it's our shared dream. I believe you continue to make sacrifices as you have always done. I want to especially appreciate you, and I want to encourage you not to relent. We're about to enter into a new phase, and every hand on deck. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a fruitful deliberation today. Thank you very much. Last but not the least, let me announce to us that our CEO was on her way here, but she took ill. Hopefully, she will be much better before we finish, and she will be here. But please do bear with us. We'll skip a speech, and when she is here, she will definitely deliver the speech. Thank you. God bless you.
Can you please put our hands together for him one more time? Okay. Some of our speakers and panelists are already in the building, but because we've had to shut down the lift, they are trying to make their ways up the building by the stairs. But perhaps what we want to quickly do is, as we prepare for this program, I'm aware that we all have questions or comments on our minds about expectations of the Institute and what are the things you want clarity on. So we can begin to put down our questions. One or two of the ushers will get to you, as such that when the panel session is on, we can take some live questions from the audience and address them whilst we are on. All right. As part of safety measures, because of what's going on, we will need to put out the power for about 2 minutes and raise that so that we can put our equipment on some platform so we don't have issues with water. Also to give time for our panelists and speakers that are coming up upstairs. If you don't mind, please, it may disrupt us a little bit. We're also trying to clear the water so that we are a lot more comfortable. Again, we sincerely apologize that this is happening, but it's been addressed already. So please permit us to take a pause for about 5 minutes, and then we will reconvene again. Thank you very much for understanding.
One, two.
Uh, we will restart the session in about 5 minutes. And for those of us that have gotten our tea, we can always join. Those on the queue will join us as we continue. We're very mindful of our time, and we wouldn't want to keep us here for much longer. Thank you very much.
One, two. One, two. One, two. One, two. One, check, check.
You can please try and settle in again. We want to continue with the program. Our speakers are here and the panelists are here as well. For those that have gotten their tea, you're free to come to the front. And for others on the line can stay. Once you are ready, we'll just speak on. We'll just join the conversation. All right, very important announcement. Uh, just to make us feel a bit safer, the blockage has been opened, so water is not coming into the hall again. And it's just the one we have on the floor that we are trying to make sure we do our best to get out of the building. But water is not coming in again. We are all safe. Again, thank you so much for your understanding and support. This will not repeat itself again. But very quickly, we would like to just continue with the program. We would like to continue with the program, please. So if you've gotten your tea and coffee or the small breakfast we provided, please come back to your seats, and you can also come to the front so that we can pay very close attention. We have in our midst with us today from one of our partners, Mr. Chukwuemeka Chime. He's a senior manager on general tax with PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. He will be sharing, starting us in this conversation, as it were. And I'm sure from his vantage position, it will call our attention to certain things that are very critical on the issue and what role we can play as an institute and also senior members of the HR community. I'd like us to please put our hands together as we welcome our first speaker of the day, Mr. Cipm. Let's put our hands together, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I appreciate it's rowdy with the noise and the rain outside, but I would like for us to concentrate as we start this session. Like I said, my name is Cipm. I am a tax professional with PricewaterhouseCoopers or PwC. I'm a senior manager in tax. I feel young in this gathering because I have just about 11 years experience in tax and 1 year in banking. But be that as it may, my role here is to walk us through the emerging and trending issues in tax with a focus of Nigeria. So now tax has become a hot topic. It used to be before that tax was just left for, the specialists, but now it is important that everybody has at least a little idea of tax, especially with the dwindling revenue that the government gets from petroleum. A lot of focus has been placed on tax. So the format of this presentation is that I will give a talk for about 20-30 minutes. After this, we'll have a panel discussion for about another 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll field questions from the house for about 10 minutes. So it's 1 hour in total. So if you have any questions, just keep it till the end. So introduction to the Nigerian tax environment. When people hear about tax, I'm sure many of us just know about the FIRS. There's also the other state inland revenue service bodies. In Lagos, we have the LIRS. In Ogun State, we have the Ogun State IRS and the different state revenue bodies. So depending on where you live in, I'm sure you would have come in contact with one of these revenue bodies at some point. We have the local government areas too that are authorized to collect their own revenue by way of levies, rates, and the rest. You have the Joint Tax Board, the JTB. The JTB is a framework where all the tax authorities come together and implement policies regarding taxes in Nigeria. You have the NCDMB, the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, or the Local Content Board. I don't know if any of us are familiar with the Local Content Board. We have the NCS, Nigeria Customs Service. We have the MASA and many other revenue collecting bodies. It is the case that in Nigeria, we have them differentiated into many bodies. In other countries, there's usually one body that is authorized to collect customs, VAT, CIT. For example, in the UK, the HMRC, Her Majesty's Royal Customs, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs collects all the taxes. But in Nigeria, we have a couple of bodies. There are different tax laws that guide taxation in Nigeria. You have the company's income tax, personal income tax, capital gains tax, and all the rest. And of course, the taxpayers. We have corporate entities, individuals like me and you, government establishments, and the rest. Paying taxes in Nigeria is a very painful thing to do. In Nigeria, sometimes the assessments are usually arbitrary. Sometimes it involves making multiple visits to the FIRS office, to the banks, and all the rest. While in other countries, these processes are usually seamless. These processes usually involve some online click of the button and your taxes are paid. But we see that the tax authorities are taking steps to try to introduce, online platforms for filing taxes in Nigeria. So I'm sure if you handle taxation in your companies for Lagos State in 2019, January 2019, you may have filed your returns online because there's a requirement for taxes to be filed online in Lagos State starting from 2019. But we see that in other states, there's still teething issues, and many of them still have to deal with the complexities of paper filing. And like I mentioned earlier, tax is now a very hot topic. In case you didn't know, in 2018, the FIRS generated about 5.3 trillion naira in tax revenue, and they've increased their tax by 60% in 2019 to 8 trillion. So the FIRS target is to raise 8 trillion from my pockets and from your pockets this year. So that is why you will see many aggressive moves by the FIRS, which we'll be discussing. One of the very interesting things that happened recently is that the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service mandated employers to deduct capital gains tax on payments to employees when they are leaving employment. I don't know if any of us heard about this year. Did you hear about it? Right. So it was kind of tricky because it used to be the case that when employees leave an organization, some employers have it in mind to give them, some, they call it thank you payment, some ex-gratia payment. And those payments used to be tax-free. Or at least the Personal Income Tax Act specifies that those payments are tax-free. But what they didn't know, or what they did not realize, is that there is another act called the Capital Gains Tax Act. And the Capital Gains Tax Act mandated that those payments should be subject to CGT, right? So now the tax authorities have said, okay, when an employee is leaving and you make those payments, I am authorizing you as the employer to deduct that payment and make it over to them. To be honest, they have the powers to do that. But it's left to be seen how this will be implemented, especially because many of these payments to people living in employment, many of them might be low income earners and all that, and imposing an additional 10% taxes on those payments which have historically not been taxed is seen in many quarters as a punitive and not a very considerate move. Please, like I said, just save your questions to the end of the presentation. Another hot topic that recently happened was that the FIRS, if not recently happened, is still happening. The tax authorities are currently writing to banks to have them freeze people's accounts, even when there's no assessment that is final and conclusive on customers of the banks. And you can imagine that this portends a lot of issues. So people have started, putting money in their own personal accounts instead of corporate accounts. The tax authorities are also still looking at how to do that. Some people like me are putting their money under their beds instead of in the bank at all. I don't know how they will find out about that. But I will take your questions on this. We'll move ahead. I've been told I have 20 minutes. Something else that happened in 2018 was that the PINCOM issued guidelines on voluntary contributions. It used to be that under the Pension Reform Act, under the previous one, voluntary contributions, which are additional contributions into your pensions fund, where if you could withdraw them. Sorry, I'm missing my train of thought. It used to be that you could make those contributions and those contributions were tax free. However, under the new act, when it was amended, there was no restriction on when you could withdraw them. So what smart was to contribute in month one and withdraw in month two. Remember, I said it was tax free. So if you contribute all your salary, for example, it's all be taxed, and you withdraw the salary in the following month. So that's what many employees were doing, right? Until the PENCOM issued guidelines to say that there was a maximum amount that you could contribute to your voluntary contribution, and that's 1/3 of your salary. And also that you cannot access the entire contribution that you make to the fund. You would only be able to access 50% of the voluntary contribution after 2 years, right? So, another thing that came up was I call it an act. It's not yet an act because it was passed by National Assembly, but it has not yet been signed by President Buhari. In fact, we heard that he rejected it and he had them go back to make some amendments. And when I heard that, there was a lot of celebrations. But the truth is, we don't even know the reason why he rejected it. It might just be that he wanted them to make some small amendments, and it might come back to the floor. But just to walk you through some of the key provisions in that bill, which might soon become an act. Now, NHF is 2.5% of your basic salary, basic only. What this is proposing to do is to expand NHF to 2.5% of your total monthly take home. That's one. Secondly, before, self-employed individuals did not need to complete NHF and contribute. Now, even self-employed individuals the fund. How many of us have gotten from NHF in this? That they are contributing, but only 3 people have been able to access this one. I mean, I don't know how many have applied, but only 3 people have gotten access. It might be a knowledge question, but the point is, even now, the NHF is not as efficient as it should be, and there are proposals to increase contributions to the fund, even to require banks and other companies contribute 10% of their pre-tax profits to the fund. And what's the NHF? The NHF is supposed to, make financing for building houses more accessible to regular people, contributors like you and I. But then they're also going to increase the price of cement by 2.5%, which is counterintuitive, right? This is a fund that is supposed to make housing more affordable, but the basic material for constructing a house, you're also increasing by including a levy of 2.5%. And many other very funny provisions that are in that bill. So it's good for us to be aware and also to know that this might be coming up anytime soon. Like I said, there are lots of disadvantages of this. One being that the penalty regime, if you don't contribute, is very draconian. For individuals, about 10 million naira, and for companies, about 100 million naira. Also, they've told you that contributions that you make to the fund will attract a 2% interest, which makes you wonder whether that makes sense at all. Because in any risk-free securities investment that you do, you get more than times 5 of 2%. And many other disadvantages of this or demerits. Another interesting thing that happened recently was something called the VOAS, Voluntary Offshore Assets Regularization Scheme. Did anybody hear of VATES? Okay, did you know of the VOAS after VATES? Many people don't know. Okay, this was meant for people like me that have a lot of money abroad and encouraging us to bring it back. So the VOAS was something that the tax authorities brought up after a kind of perceived success of the VAT scheme. The purpose was to encourage people that have stacked up property outside Nigeria to bring them back in and pay a one-time levy of 35% on the value of your property, or they will assess you to other taxes, penalties, interest, and the possibility of prosecution. So, I mean, if you think about it, this does not make sense. And I can give you many reasons, and we can spend 1 hour debating whether or not this makes sense. First of all, you cannot assess taxes on property. I don't want to go into all the complexities, so I'll just say that you should not assess on income. So it makes sense that if you can buy a house, you have the income to buy a house. So why not just assess you on the value of the house, right? But what you should assess taxes on is on an individual's income. Then it is for offshore property, and you're wondering how are they going to implement this. So by myself, I'll go and disclose all the property that I have. And because they said they were partnering with tax authorities in Switzerland to go through people's bank accounts and assess what properties they have. It's actually very impractical. Also, they said there's a one-time levy of 35%, and that's supposed to be the incentive. In Nigerian tax laws, there's no single tax rate that is 35%. So how do you give an incentive that is higher than the regular tax? If you're a company or if you are a corporate organization, you pay 30% tax maximum on taxable profits. As an individual, your highest effective tax rate is about 19.2%. Effective. And so they give you an incentive to bring them in and pay 35%. I don't know how that works. Anyway, in practice, what we see right now is that this has not been gaining a lot of traction. Unlike the VAT switch seemed to actually give some incentives, this has not, and it's also a very impractical order to implement. So personally, in PwC tax, we have not seen anybody that has come forward under the VOAS scheme. And I think personally, anybody that does that will be foolish to do that. I had some icebreakers, but I don't know whether to do this because my time is running, but I should break the ice. Okay. I usually do this when I give presentations to other places. I don't do that today here, but just so here there's some words that relate to tax, finance, and they are just scrambled. So the first people to unscramble them will get a special gifts after the presentation. So this is, who knows what this is? Taxation. Well done, you. There are smart people here. Very then, okay. Nobody will know this one. Nobody will know it. Okay. No. It's relating to tax code. Somebody said it. Tribunal. Profit. This is easy. Deduction. Wow. Incentive. I don't see. If anybody that gets this one, I'll personally give the person my ATM without my PIN. Okay, think about when you buy an asset. Depreciation. Thank you. And this says liability. Thanks. So the answer is right there. Say again. Okay. Yeah, and another thing that we see as a hot topic now is the tax authorities trying to increase the VAT rate, especially to fund the new minimum wage, which has been proposed. Earlier in the year, the chairman of the FIL, Babatunde Fowler, was having some discussions with the FEC, Federal Executive Council, and he made some statements around increasing the. Actually, what he meant was increasing the revenue gotten from those taxes, but the public interpreted it to mean that they will increase tax rates. But then he clarified that there's actually a proposal to increase not the corporate tax rate, but the VAT rate. So right now, who knows what the VAT rate is? So there are proposals to increase the VAT rate to 7.5%. And then he made statements talking about how VAT would not affect the poor because poor people should not consume. Exactly, and that VAT was a consumption tax. That the items that poor people consume more are exempt from VAT. So you mentioned things like basic food items. Actually, basic food items are exempt. Baby products, medical products, and all the rest. But are those all people spend money on? Won't I live in a house? Won't I pay rent? Won't I buy clothes? And all those things. So the proposal to increase VAT without looking at and also implementing the national tax policy that was introduced in 2017 is a no-no. And also, even those basic food items, many of them already have VAT costs included in them by the manufacturer. And so you can't say because the end product is exempt that the VAT that the manufacturers have included doesn't get passed on to the consumer. I mean, yeah. So, but anyway, that's one of the proposals by the FIRS. There's actually been a VAT. There's been a VAT bill which they brought up and has been dropped a couple of times, but we think that they are pushing seriously to implement this. But as far as we know, no proposals to increase the CIT rate. Yeah, I already spoke about all this. Future outlook, these are some of the executive orders and amendment bills which the House is currently considering. I'm not going to go into issues to help us with proper planning of our tax matters as individuals and in our company. And I usually end my presentations by asking one question, and I hope everybody is just I guess what they call knowledge being a waste. There are only two countries in the world that tax their citizens on their income wherever they. So personal income tax is usually based on your residence principle. Okay, you have to be working or residing in a jurisdiction for your income to be taxed. However, there are two countries that, so far you are a citizen of those countries, anywhere you are, you'll be paying tax to your home country. And I don't know if anybody knows those two countries. And this one I'll actually give a gift. Yes, there's one more. No. And I'll give you a clue. You would never imagine that it is this country. And it is in Africa. No. No. Okay, it is not in South. It is in the no, it's not Nigeria. You won't pay taxes in Nigeria if you're living outside Nigeria. The country starts with an E. The country broke out from Ethiopia, Eritrea. Thank you.
A round of applause for Chukwuemeka. I think that was an interesting session. Please, if you have questions, GT is here. Just pen down your questions on a piece of paper and we will treat them at the appropriate time. For those who are just arriving, we've just had Chukwuemeka Chime, the senior manager, General Tax, PwC, deliver that initial speech. Also, seated here, we have members of our panel already, on their seat. And so I will call them to please move on to the high seat here. So I invite Mrs. Funke Amobi. Please a round of applause. Likewise, I will invite Barrister Jide Ologun, Cipm. You're welcome. Then I will invite Mr. Abidin Akonde, the Special Advisor to the Executive Chairman, LIRS. You're welcome. Our moderators will be looking at some of these topical issues that Chukwuemeka has highlighted with regards to the emerging trends and issues on tax-related matters as it affects human resource management in Nigeria in particular. We expect them to try to segment, how this affects different stakeholders in the country. We also expect that they will look at the policy issues. Maybe CIPM may also give some input into how some of the bills that are not yet formed fully or discussed fully, how we can also advocate that they be positively impacted to help drive positive change rather than be felt as a pain by the people. So we will look at various legal issues. We have also a lawyer, I think Lawyer Atilola is here, Mokikon is here, some of them will also help us chip in one or two things. So we would give 5 minutes to each of our panelists to speak to this matter, given their perspective, and then we will have 10 minutes of interactions, engagement, and opportunity to answer questions. So first on the list, therefore, I will hand over the mic to the Special Advisor to the Executive Chairman, LIRS, because this is really their own topic, their matter. So we want to hear from him, really. So I would hand over the mic to Mr. Abidin Akonde. Please help me welcome.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I came in late, but I think I've got a bit of what Chukwuemeka discussed. But it's important to clarify on one basic thing. Taxation in Nigeria is also subject to the federal system that we have in place here. And essentially, at the federal level, we have the FRS, and it handles basically corporate tax. It used to handle personal income tax for residents of Abuja before the creation of the FCTRS. Now, at the state level, we handle strictly personal income tax as it affects individual entities, that is you and I. At the local government level, also, they have some levies and taxes which they are allowed to do. But I guess coming in here today, I realized the importance of keeping to one's lane. If I kept to my lane, because my office is just close by here, I would have just come here much earlier. But I had to go through the traffic because it was raining. And most people were just people that were supposed to queue for the CIPM lane were not there. And then the people that are going to Ikeja were also on CIPM, so it just bottled up everything.
So I would probably like to just stay on my lane for these 5 minutes. So I would dabble into the issues of VAT, CIT. The only area which I possibly will cross over into is the fact that I know that there's an omnibus bill that has been put in place by the PEBEC, that's the office of an agency in the office of the VP that is trying to ease doing business, yes, in Nigeria. And that bill, as good as it looks, I don't think it has been exposed to the wider public as the NTP, that's National Tax Policy, which was the main success factor of the National Tax Policy, because it was exposed widely. People were able to contribute as much as they were on it. Now, for LRS, the personal income tax that we do, it's a federal law. So when people come around and say Lagos is they tax them more, it is not true. And essentially what we did way back in 2017, I think the fourth quarter, was to issue series of clarification letters, that is public notices, to put some transparency on some of those gray areas that we usually have disputes around. Now, the most current one that we did was sometimes late last year, fourth quarter, on the CGT issue. But like I always tell people, in Lagos, we do not want any kobo that does not belong to us. All we want is what belongs to Lagos. And like he clarified, there is nobody in Nigeria. Oh, he said 19.2. Actually, the effective rate is just 18 point something, 18.9. So it's and the thing good about it is that you can't pay less than 1%, but you can't pay more than 19% as well. So you know from day one that on every 100 naira, no taxman in Lagos will ask you to drop more than 19 naira. But every taxman in Lagos will insist that you pay at least between 1 naira and that 19 naira, depending on your income level. What we did in fourth quarter of 2018 was to also ease, because when we talk of ease of doing business, it has a whole lot of ramifications. It also involves tax administration itself, because the challenge we have in Nigeria is no matter what anybody will tell you, nobody wants to pay tax anywhere in the world anyway. But the challenge in Nigeria is that the cost of compliance is actually higher than the penalty. So there's an hidden incentive for you to not to comply. So the main driving, the reform drive that we have in Lagos is to actually drive down that cost of compliance, so that effectively, because we don't have control over the penalties, which are federal laws and what have you, so if we can sufficiently drive down the cost of compliance, then we'll have an incentive to voluntarily, because if the penalty is 10 naira and the effective cost of compliance for you is 2 naira, then you have an incentive to comply. But if the cost of even complying is about 12 naira and the penalty is 10 naira, so I'd rather just wait and then pay the 10 naira. So essentially what we did then was that we appointed employers, because I used to be in HR practice myself. So the agent that was the bank. So we appointed employers as our agents for collection of CGT on capital sums that could arise from loss of employment. Because prior to that, what's in it? But like I always tell people, in Lagos, we work within the confines of the law. We work within the confines. And the comments we've had so far, that's why we are never shy of having judicial interpretation of some of our activities and some of the policies that we put in place. So what we have said is that, okay, you are the one that is paying these people. Anytime you are paying, just be told that portion that belongs to Lagos State and send it to us. It's very easy and simple. And it's provided for in the law, because it says clearly that there are some sections of Peter and that could be used and applied to operate the CGT. And that's all that we have done. So when people come around and say, no, this and that, I tell them that please go and read very well, because that's a challenge we have. People never read in Nigeria. The first public opinion on any legislation is what everybody just parodying about. I don't know whether he clarified it, because I've tried to check it as well. We grant tax relief on NHF contribution, but there's actually nothing like that in the law. But it is just taken, and that's what we do. We are not thinking of doing that anyway. Just not now. But that's the reality. Now, on the issue of outsourcing arrangements, which is something that could also apply, we've had consultation from Nasima on it when we issued that, because it is there in the law that the ultimate employer has obligation to the tax authority to ensure that the outsourcing entities actually are tax compliant. And that's all that Lagos did. No more, no less. Now, he talked about the issue of the voluntary contribution issue without being without beating our bells. Actually, it is something that we drove from here, just across the road. It took us almost 18 months for even our colleagues to see the danger, the existential danger, because maybe it didn't clarify. Most of the states in this country, 65 to 70%, except Abia, comes from payee contribution. Now, the voluntary abuse of the voluntary contribution was going to adversely affect payee contribution. So even without increase in what do you call it, in minimum wage and what have you, most states would have been in serious soup by last year, because the abuse was gaining traction until we came out, because we explained to our colleagues and what have you, and shared with them that this is something that we have seen and it's going to affect everybody. We didn't see it until one of our colleagues we were at a meeting, JTB meeting, and said he doesn't know what is happening. And anyway, one of the most offices in Nigeria that has little or no tenure is that of the chairmanship of most of these IRSs. So the guy was about a third in his state, and he realized that a company that was paying maybe about 1,000 before, all of a sudden he just paid 200. I said, he didn't know where it's coming from, and he's not even too sure of where it's going to go next. And I said, it's there. All they have done, like he told you, that people just dump everything into whatever and then connect the next month. And that is not pension. It's not a savings scheme. And how we had to jump the gun and force the hand of the regulatory authorities to actually put some clarification on this. So essentially, that's what we do in Lagos State. We don't want anything extra, and it's just what belongs to us and for the state and for the good people, including all the people that are seated there. We are all Lagosians, and we all contribute to the economy of Lagos. So it is in our interest that we do what is right, because yes, we are not there, but the cup is a bit half full. Lagos is trying as much as possible to use taxpayers' money to drive infrastructure development. And if we take a sample of people that are here, I'm sure close to 60% or 70% went to maybe public schools. In those days, the bright people go to public schools. But today, how many of us are sending our children to public schools? No. Why do we have that? You see, and essentially, so there's a price for every price. That is PRICE and ZE. So what we do for tax, the essence of tax is that if we want a sane society, then I believe you don't have any dispute on that. We've got to pay our tax, but we've got to pay it adequately. I agree that we need to expand the net. Also, what we do we also to deepen the net to ensure that nobody should escape what he needs to pay to the state. That's my opening remark. Thank you very much.
I want us for Mr. Abidin Akonde. Wonderful. The net. Well, I said in the net, holes of the net are also getting tighter on people. And maybe, one of our panelists will address that. But please, before that, there's an important announcement. If your car is a Camry, gray color, KRD 387FD, please, you are blocking someone. They need you urgently downstairs. Likewise, Toyota Sequoia, ash color, MUS 86FB. Toyota Sequoia, MUS 86FB, ash color, please go downstairs. As well as the Camry gray color, KRD 387FD. I think to quickly maybe respond or give some insight, about how some of these issues that our LRS boss have raised up. I will call Funke to tell us how this affects, the workforce, the people she manages, and also the organization. I want her to give a perspective, the professional, how we see all this tax law. Are they really people-centric? How do we perceive it? I just want our opinion. I don't want to, maybe spike her guns. I know she's full of matter and she wants to deliver. So please welcome Funke Amobi.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by commending our esteemed institute, Cipm, for pulling together this kind of stakeholder engagement, because it's not common, and it's something that we need to continue to do. If we had been having stakeholder engagements of this nature, perhaps indeed all stakeholders would be absolutely happy with where we are on this subject. Having said that, the subject of tax is one that is very, very key to a number of strategic responsibilities of HR as a function, and HR professionals seated here as strategic business partners from two perspectives. Firstly, from the staff cost perspective. Secondly, workforce management perspective, which you can interpret as employee engagement. So the business requires people to deliver on its objectives. People are required to be at a particular state of mind and level of excitement to bring their best into the workplace. And so compensation, we find, is a key driver of employee engagement. So employees feel that, you pay me well. I think that I'm excited enough to bring my best to work. The issue of tax is strongly related to both components. So how much we pay our staff, which invariably will be our staff cost, and often about 65% of the overall cost element of most corporates in whatever part of the world. So the employee then asks himself, how much of my components called compensation goes into tax? And in a stakeholder conversation like this, we're talking about it to have a shared understanding of the what, the how, and the effect that it has on us. So the first stakeholder group being our employees are the most important when we step in as HC professionals. The second being our business. The third being our regulatory authorities, the LIRS in this regard. So the first thing that comes to mind with the employees is that employees are asking you questions around how much tax am I required to pay? You find that the average Nigerian worker may have changed employment 5 times, but every time they're asking how much tax am I required to pay? That is because it impacts their disposable income at the end of the day. And then it impacts the way they feel, about the work they do. And contrary to the general belief by the average authority that Nigerians don't want to pay tax, I don't think that there is an apathy or there is a feeling of not wanting to pay tax. Rather, I think it's about, first of all, understanding the tax laws and understanding how the tax laws impact the employees, which is where I believe we come in as HR professionals. Firstly, keeping our staff informed of the tax laws, maybe keeping ourselves informed to start with, and then keeping our staff informed of the tax laws at the right time. At the right time, pre-employment, at the induction point, before people actually hit the ground and start feeling, oh my God, the tax burden. Man, I don't seem to be able to have too much disposable income. They suggest that they're not informed. Having dealt with the information part of our own requirements as a critical stakeholder group, how then do we manage employees? If I read out from public notices once upon a time from LIRS on a number of tax matters and how it has impacted our workforce, tax relief on voluntary pension contribution, tax treatment of employees' outsourcing arrangements, allowable interest deduction on owner-occupied residential houses, exemption of compensation for loss of employment, tax treatment of employee loan, taxation of employees' stock options, taxation of non-residents, tax treatments of savings elements on insurance premium, valuation of accommodation provided by employers, determination of reasonable removal expenses. So I've simply given a laundry list. Now, these are tax-related areas that impact managing our workforce on a regular basis. And I find that when the HR function is not equipped enough, informed enough, knowledgeable enough to understand what parts of the tax can be planned because it's effective tax management. So human capital professionals as a stakeholder group, number one, must work hand in hand with our tax experts in the finance team, so that when the tax-related notices that impact employees, like these notices I've just read out, are released, we have a complete stakeholder engagement to understand what it means to our employees and inform accordingly. Having said that is, how do all of this impact the way employees feel? It impacts their employee engagement levels, if not well managed. Where employees feel, I'm not sure of my disposable income because you are always coming up with changes that I didn't anticipate. Because, oh, you suddenly come and tell me now that the loan that I have been receiving or that I have received, I need to now start paying tax on the interest element that I am enjoying, which is sort of like a dividend. Compensation for loss of employment. Employees typically believe that when I lose my job, you know what, you're paying me something for losing my job. And as a result of that, it's not taxable. So I should be going away because I've lost my job. I should be going away with something. So if you're then telling me that it's taxable, if you don't have enough to explain to the employee why this tax law is so. So my first thought is several tax laws in various ways impact employees. So my first call out to the first stakeholder group, human resource practitioners, is to say, we need to have the expertise to understand the laws and to figure out the compensating parts of the tax laws that will help cushion one side. To plan our compensation for our staff, we must understand tax incidents as well, which impacts our staff cost. And then finally, compliance, as I like to say, is a yes, yes. There's no, we're all responsible corporate citizens, and there's no corporate organization, I believe, that wants to remain in business that will say, you know what, I'm going to break all the tax laws. It doesn't work that way. So compliance is a must do. Having said that, how do we ensure that we comply in a way that is effectively balanced and all the stakeholders are informed, they understand, and they plan in any event? Perhaps indeed, because our tax experts sometimes tell us, you mustn't just understand the PITA, you must understand all the related taxes to be able to fully implement in a manner that, you know, where there is a balance, you can effective for employees. So it's how do we ensure that we're informed, perhaps early enough, perhaps in a manner that is balanced. One other area of taxation, since I find that our esteemed LRI's colleagues are here today, stakeholders are here, is to say, employees also struggle sometimes to understand multiple taxation. They struggle sometimes to understand when they feel, you know, I'm paying tax, and then there are some other levies by the state in which I work, or by, you know, other, you know, levies that also are administered under tax. And how come I have to bear, beyond the PITA, I have to bear this and that? Now, hold this constant. Compliance is a must do. we're going to comply anyway. Am I correct? We're discussing. Am I correct? So because the impact of when one feels I'm being taxed, there are multiple taxation. So the question is, how can we integrate in a manner that the employee doesn't feel that I'm dealing with multiple taxation? That is a question for the stakeholder, our esteemed regulator to say, how can we integrate as much as possible in the way that the employee is informed and is able to manage that incident and understands that I'm being impacted accordingly. Being impacted on several notes. And then to our esteemed HR professionals or HC consultants and say, how can we keep our employees informed at the right time so it doesn't impact employee engagement? How can we keep our employees informed because tax is a regulatory requirement that our organization has taken a position to comply with. So how can we ensure that when we are selling our employee value proposition, we are selling the same proposition that we are a compliant organization and we're going to pay your taxes in full, where there's no other conversation to have. But we will let you know as much as we know the breadth of the taxation. It also behoves on us that we then need to get ourselves informed, constantly informed of potential changes. And then finally, I think to put on the table is also to say, how can we co-create? How can we work together, in such a way that potentially we can do impact evaluation and assessment even finally before, we go live with some of these things, particularly because of the impact and, potential impact on the Nigerian workforce and the labor market at large. Thank you.
A round of applause. Okay. That was a nice contribution. Please keep your questions coming. I've received some. The gentleman, in the center here will collect your questions, or you can give it to Benga to you here. Thank you very much, Funke, once again. So you've put on the table the role that HR practitioners and consultants here will play, and also the role of tax authorities. But I find it very intriguing that there have been no conversation to take in inputs from the stakeholders who are really affected by the tax when such matters are considered. Laws are just thrown at us. I think that's one of the things Funke said. I think experts, professionals in the field should be involved in coming up with tax laws and all that. I don't know whether we do surveys and all that, but let's hear from Barrister Jide Ologun, his own perspective, in terms of scoping this, matter of tax challenges, feeling even the pulse of the people on the streets, vis-a-vis consulting experience.
Thank you, Pastor Jide. I beg to be disruptive, please. In HR, we teach you don't sit down for too long. And I want to connect with everyone in this hall because what we are discussing is very critical. Thank you, sir, for your insight, and thank you, ma'am. And I hope it's your primary obligation to pay your tax. And it's your secondary right to enjoy the tax you pay. And then tax is made up of 3 letters. The T stands for trust. And begin to ask yourself, is that element in Nigeria? The A stands for accountability. And the X stands for xenia. If you check the dictionary, xenia has to do with romance, touching. Women love to be touched. Am I right? Women love their husbands to touch them. Men are moved by what they see. To be touched with money, when that is, and these 3 elements are crucial. Answer: tax is a source of revenue, and we appreciate all we have been able to bring in, 5.3 trillion. These are quite impressive. But let's go to other elements of revenue drive that we have thrown into the dustbin in this country. Before I go into that, I want to let us know that there are countries of the world who don't even tax their people. You look at the Bahamas, there is no income tax in the Bahamas. They tax tourists who come to that community. In the UAE, you don't pay income tax except when you're in the oil and gas or financial services.
and they make their people great. Now, I'm addressing CIPM. I don't want the government to continue to set agenda for me. We want to set agenda for the government. Now they've gone pedestrian on NSITF, NLC operating like thugs, with all due respect, please. But are we addressing what NSITF is supposed to deal with? It came out of Convention 102 of the International Labour Organization that was found in 1919, 100 years ago. And we have the National Pension Fund of 1961 to meet a need. Are those needs met today? Let me go to the minimum wage. Many of us are rejoicing. 30,000 naira. In 2011, when the minimum wage was increased to 18,000, dollar was 162 naira to a dollar. You convert that minimum wage, it was $111. In 2019, when it is increased to 30,000 naira, dollar is 360. You convert that minimum wage, it is $83 approximately. Are we making progress? And yet we spent about $2 billion on insurgents in 2016. These things are on record. So I want us to think. Nigeria is the greatest country in the world. I hope we know that an African country, Rwanda, made about $400 million from tourism, people coming to watch by gorillas. And they have a huge ambition of raising to about 800 million annually. Do you know that in Zamfara State, the gold reserve in Zamfara can earn you about $2 billion annually? And do you know we lost 353 billion naira within the space of time? And we have produced 44,000 widows, 22,000 widows and 44,000 orphans in my country. Let me go to the oil and gas. That should be a source of revenue. The exploration for oil and gas started in 1907 in Nigeria. We discovered oil in commercial quantity in 1956 in Oloibiri in the Niger Delta region. The first refinery, I think, was constructed between 1963 and 1965. We have 4 refineries. There are about 700 refineries in the whole world. South Africa has 6. They draw 30% of their crude oil from Nigeria, 40% from Saudi Arabia. They are doing well. America has about 135 refineries functioning. And here we are in Nigeria. We spend 1.4 trillion naira annually on under recovery, subsidy, so to say. And nobody is asking question. A minister of finance asked question on under remittance of revenue. Her certificate of NYC showed up about 3 weeks later. She's out of office. Someone came in. In November 2018, within 3 weeks, our excess crude account was depleted by 73%. CIPM, we are here. I suggested on TVC yesterday to NLC and Dr. Nkike that we have professional bodies in Nigeria, not consulting them. Going forward, Nigeria should not be reckoned as a poor country. You want to talk about our agricultural potentials, but how can we prosper when some are killing the farmers that should be producing food? Sir, I pay tax willingly by the grace of God, but I feel compelled to pay tax. But let me just tell you some taxes I pay also that I shouldn't be paying in my country. Just last Friday on this Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, I was robbed by men with machetes. I lost my laptop, my phone. We put them together over 100,000. But thank God his blessings can swallow that. But how many Nigerians can cope with that? Kidnapping everywhere. So we should be looking beyond tax. Sir, I love Lagos, which is my jurisdiction. I shouted so much about this as a big goal. The state of the roads. You see, so we shouldn't be talking. You see, let me advise the government through CIPM. If you look at Section 16 of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria as amended, it talks about the economic objective of the government. The This government is expected to manage our economy in a way that will create a consistent and sustainable national development, and that will not concentrate well in the hands of few. That we make adequate housing available, adequate food, care for the old. If you make me happy, is there? Go and read it, sir. Provide for all citizens. May I advise that if today we all have prepaid meters, how much will come to the coffers of the government? Who are the cabal sitting on that project? I mean, there is in the private sector, we talk about, please permit me to bring in public relations. In public relations, we say business has 5 pillars. The first one is survival. The second is growth. Third is employee satisfaction. The fourth one is profitability. And the next one is social corporate investment, which you call CSR, social investment. Nigeria is sick. And no policy, whether tax or whatever, can bail Nigeria out until we bring resourcefulness to the way we manage our resources. In closing, sir, from 1948 to 2019, I think the unemployment rate in US was between 5 and 7% consistently. Right now, it's about 3.6% as at March 2019. But yours in Nigeria is 23% plus. Oh, I repent. I'm being carried away. It's 23% plus. But let me tell you, that is for the masses. I don't want you to answer me how much does a senator earn in Nigeria. Recently, they rose up in Bayelsa to pass a law of life pension. And I appreciated them. You know why? They are aware that the macro environment is very dangerous. So they must remain in office. And I also assure them that if you like, collect $70 million as your pension. The kidnappers are waiting. Do we know that 7 states in this country have been declared as banditry, geo-banditry states? Say so. Nigeria needs to go back, sir. And that is my message for CIPM. Please, a man said out of wisdom that when the government fears the people, there is good government. When the people fear the government, it is bad government. So, sir, I want to live in Lagos in the next 3 years where I can drive freely. Let me amuse you. I was discussing my younger one in the US when I came back from holiday. He works in Midland. He lives in Houston, about 12 hours drive. And he said he was going back to work, on and off. And I said, safe journey. He laughed. He said, you don't say safe journey in America. You say enjoy your trip because the roads are safe. I love Nigeria. And this nation must be great. And I drop it on the table of CIPM and the stakeholders here. God bless you. God bless Nigeria. A round of applause again for you. This panel was intentionally concentrated. I know that it speaks for the people, the masses. Okay. I know she is speaking for business and employees, the talents. And he is speaking for the authorities. It's exciting to have the three here. See, this is just the beginnings of the trends you begin to notice at CIPM. We are not sitting on the bench anymore. We are going to set the agenda. Our advocacy is being ratcheted to the next level. Okay. Very quickly, I have some questions here because we just have about 10 minutes for questions. Then I'll call Benga to take the next thing. Several questions are here that I will throw. The first question I have here, please also, our first presenter, the speaker, Chukwuemeka Chime, is still here because we will throw some questions to you also. Please, can you just sit there because of the video? Thank you very much. The first question quickly goes, I think the LIRS special advisor made mention of issue of residency and all that something. So someone asked the question, what is the tax responsibility of people living in Ogun State but working in Lagos? Because we have majority of them here living in lesser Lagos. How many? Please raise your hand. Lesser Lagos. Because in lesser Lagos. But don't let it go. Could say governor. So, and please, if you can take the second question quickly, is there actually a way to maximize tax burden in the corporate environment to improve the income discussion? I think it's minimize once, right? Okay. So minimize tax burden in the corporate environment so as to improve the disposable income of employees. Please, maybe you can just fire both questions, please.
Yeah. There are two issues before the question. Barrister Low will talk about the social contract because essentially that's what all the argument is all about. That there's a constitutional provision that says every citizen of Nigeria also must fully and truthfully declare his income. And also there's a corollary of it that says that the government that is the custodian of this collective commonwealth should use the aggregated revenue for the development of the citizenry and the country at large. Yes, like I said, we are not there, but like I always tell people, the truth of the matter is that we cannot wait until the government is able to do it before we can. People say it's chicken and egg, which comes first. But I think the more people that pay taxes, the more they are likely to be asking questions and will be driving improvements in governance. When people don't pay, they don't see their contribution to the Commonwealth and to the common good. So the local government chairman, the councillor, the whatever can do whatever they like. But the moment you know that it is from my contribution that this man is doing this, then we'll be able to build a critical mass to be able to drive improvements in governance. That's my take on that. On the issue of multiplicity of taxes, the challenge we have is that we confuse levies with taxes. Like Chukwemeka said, and which I confirmed, in terms of personal income tax, the maximum you pay would be not more than 19%. We'll come to that. I'll address it. And then in this country, unfortunately for us, we've had about 2 or 3 panels to harmonize taxes. But every time you have that committee, there's one currently on which my chairman is a member. The truth of it, anytime they have this so-called committee, they end up increasing the number of taxes and levies. Currently, we have about 52. 9 at federal level, 18 or about 20 something at state and whatever. But the truth of the matter is that we don't challenge the committee that you are going to harmonize taxes. This is what I told, I think this is my secretary at the Cipm conference about 2 weeks ago as well. That you have a committee, we have 52. We are going to harmonize. All we want you to do is reduce this into 25 or 20. So it's now for them to be creative. But by the time you sit down and what have you, my fear is that even the 52 might even go up again because you have local government Algon saying they want to collect bicycle. It's just ridiculous. Radio. So, but those are things that can be worked on, and I think like if Cipm, Citn, ICANN, and all of them put pressure on the authority, we are likely to have, because I think we are ingenious enough to reduce the number of levies and taxes. Now to the questions. Living in Ogun and working in Lagos, taxation, like most other jurisdiction in Nigeria, except from very few, like you said, is based on residency. So your tax obligation is to Ogun State where you reside. Okay. The fact that you work in Lagos is immaterial. That's okay. On the how to minimize tax burden. Now, this is an area, I'm not trying to take his job away from him, because they are the one that do tax planning. But the truth of the matter is that at OECD level, that's at the global level, essentially what we are, it's all tax authorities and even all development partners are pushing through is that we don't want situation of double taxation, but we don't want a situation of zero taxation as well. So what we expect is that every income should be subjected to the appropriate tax burden. Now, how you now plan to work within the laws, and every time what we are doing is that we are tightening the rules so that at the end of the day, it's the belief and that we all have to chip in our own contribution to the common pool for the good of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Okay, I have two questions here very quickly. Thank you very much, sir. I have two questions quickly for Funke. Someone asked, why is it mandatory to deduct tax from the gratuity benefit of existing staff? Funke, maybe. So how do you react to that? Even as someone who is suffering the pinch, how do you react to it? You know, you're in Chukwemeka. Okay, maybe Chukwemeka, but for Funke, how do you handle the attitude of tax administrators who levy the wrong tax after tax audits and are not willing to engage? It appears they want to let business, go out of existence or to kill business. So how do you manage that? I think this is a practical, issue.
Okay, no, I haven't encountered it before. But what it sounds like to me is a matter of competence. So if you levy, when you say tax administrators, I'm believing that these are tax administrators not within the within the organization. Is that the understanding? Outside, who have come to do the review. So internally, every organization, there are some basic rules. When I say basic rules, is the foundation. Is the foundation for this conversation we're having. The foundation is that you know your tax laws. Come on. You got to know your tax laws as an HR practitioner. Or you work with the finance experts who know the tax laws and get them to bring you up to speed continuously on the provisions on an understanding administering tax laws, i.e. your payroll manager or your payroll consultants or your external consultants, your auditors, your tax consultants. You have to own the expertise internally. By owning it internally, it could be your staff or it could be leveraged on your external auditors. Your firm may not be large enough to have, tax managers and tax competencies in-house or within your HR function. But you must leverage on a tax expertise because it's a body of knowledge. If you know your laws, like any other space of law, and you have implemented accordingly, when the tax authorities come for the revision or for the audit or for the review, it is a collaborative exercise because you should know and you should, I don't want to say, self-audit yourself, but you should already be able to answer the audit questions in a manner that throws up your compliance. I'm one individual HR manager that takes the view that the tenets of our profession, Cipm, mandates us to comply with the tax laws. Am I correct? That is it. The tenets of what we have vowed, and I'm glad you're nodding your head, sir. We're a responsible profession. We are. The tenets of what we have vowed to do as professionals is to uphold the laws of the land and to obey accordingly, comply accordingly. And our institutions are equally responsible organizations who have said, you know what, responsible HR practitioners, come in and do a responsible assignment for us, make sure we comply with the laws. Having said that, if you have your expertise in place and you have conducted your processes in line with the expertise, you should have even prioritated yourself and be able to answer the necessary questions. When the authorities come in, the authorities come in to do a review. And you understand that, look, we have complied. The conversation, in my view, would be at a matter of expertise. It's a matter of, it should be fact-based. It should be a fact-based conversation. So I wouldn't be able to understand, the second phase of the question that says it appears they are out to kill the business. It should be a conversation of facts, facts-based. The law is a fact. Compliance should be a fact. It should be fact-based. If I'm saying I've paid in line with the rates, I've played in line with the exemptions as stated, I should have evidence, and I'll show my evidence. Once I'm having a fact-based conversation, evidence-based conversation, I struggle to see what else the issues would be. I hope that answers the question.
A round of applause. I think the emphasis is differentiate between tax evasion and tax avoidance. Okay, one is a crime, the other is based on ingenuity of expertise. I think that's the emphasis. Thank you very much. Chukwuemeka, you will help us with this question. Quickly, someone said you made reference to CGT. Kindly elaborate because the person wants you to. Then the second thing, well, just that's it. The next thing, the person wants difference between VAT and withholding tax. Okay, can you quickly do that?
Sure. CGT stands for capital gains tax. So CGT applies on gains of a capital nature that a company or an individual or any other taxable person earns. Most of the gains are usually by way of disposals. So when you have assets and capital items, generally, the CGT Act lists of these on. When you dispose of those items and you sell them for a value that is higher than the original cost, you've made a gain. And those gains will be capital in nature if those items are assets to you. And why I'm making that point is there are some items that from an ordinary view might be capital or you would think is capital. But if your business is to be selling those items, that gain is not capital to you. So if you sell houses, for example, and you make gains on the sale of houses, that gain is not subject to CGT, it's subject to income tax in houses. But if you have and please can this mic work properly? If you have a house which is an asset to you, which you have and is of an enduring nature and it's supposed to bring in future revenue and all that, you know how to define an asset. When you sell that, you make a capital gain and it's subject to CGT, and the CGT rate is 10%. Interestingly, the CGT Act also includes compensation for loss of employment as one of the items on which CGT arises. So it's difficult for me because it is within the powers of the LIRS to actually request for employers to act as agents for the deduction of taxes. It's in Peter. And if that payment is subject to CGT by way of the CGT Act, the LIRS can actually ask employers to deduct it. So it's not a question of law, because based on the law, it is applicable. It is more a question of, the human face, the emotional, because somebody's losing his job, and then historically that's been exempt, and then the person says, a tax of 10% on, his take-home pay. So it is something that I think the LIs, like you said, are working within the confines of the law, but it can be punitive if, for example, the person's effective tax rate is lower than 10%. There are people that have their effective tax rate lower than 10%, by the way, and then you post that CGT. That's one. And maybe it's a time to have a conversation with your employer, whether the employer can bear the cost because some employers.
What are the other questions?
Okay, VAT and withholding tax. VAT is an indirect tax on value added on services or goods as they move through the supply chain. So if I buy a good, there's a 5% VAT on that good. There's some items that are exempt, but we're not going into all that. There's a 5% VAT on that good. When I process that good or add value and I sell it, I should charge a 5% VAT when I sell. Okay. In ideal situations, I should get the 5%.
Okay. Shoot withholding tax.
Withholding tax is an advance payment of income tax. It is not an indirect tax. So when I sell to a customer, the laws have asked the customers to, when they are paying me, they should withdraw an amount and pay to the tax authorities on my behalf. At the end of the year, that customer is supposed to give me a credit note to show that they have paid those taxes. And when I calculate my tax, I should be able to use that to reduce the cash funds that I'm paying. Okay. So there are two different taxes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Chukwemeka. I will want to ask Barrister Jide Ologun. You know, this is also something that borders on social contract and public advocacy. This person is concerned, says, can we use this fund that belong to us, in quotes, effectively to provide basic amenities, good road, lights, houses, you know, making life much more comfortable for us. So you know, he said something. Primary responsibility is pay your secondary is what? Job. So now you have raised this. Please just succinctly tell us or advise your authorities how they can do the secondary.
It's a possibility, and that has to do with sincerity of governance. And I'll just quickly give some African examples. In Rwanda, we have Uber Blood. They use drone to deliver basic medical materials to hinterlands, and they have launched a satellite into the space to link the schools in local areas with the internet to drive their processes. In Tanzania, when John Magufuli came in, within the space of 1 month, he transformed the hospitals. He sacked the sackables. He drew money from what he wanted to spend on unnecessary on independence. I said, go and equip the hospitals. This is what I want for my people. So if somebody was engaging an African leader, that why is it that your people shout and shout before they get what you want? And the man said, why is it that you give them what they need all the time? He said, because the wealth belongs to them. I did a study on Sheikh Zayed of the UAE, the founding father of the modern UAE, who managed the place about 38 years. The man said wealth is not money, but developing the people. So these are possibilities. And finally, if they are not possibilities, why do we run abroad to enjoy this? Medical care, different kinds of things. If they are not possibilities, why should a government official be driving a 92 million naira Land Cruiser armored vehicle when the others are exposed to attackers and armed robbers all around? If it's not possible, why should wheelbarrow become a source of youth empowerment in this present age and time? So what up? And this country will thank you, Barrister Jide. I want Funke also to give us a parting shot, just in 60 seconds.
Just listening to Barrister, you would think you're on another channel completely. In closing, colleagues, the subject of tax can really be an emotive one. But let's not forget, it is a regulatory requirement. So in closing, it is our responsibility to educate our employees to understand the tax laws. That is a difficult assignment, but we need to do it. To get our employees to understand the tax, the implication of the tax laws in practical terms, we should educate. Secondly, we should be informed. Maybe our education first before we educate our staff. should understand these laws. Pay attention to it, be deliberate about it. We should understand the tax laws, its implication for our human capital fundamental processes such as payroll and the impact on our employees. Secondly, then, we should educate our employees, inform them, educate ourselves, educate our employees, and then thirdly and finally, seek the platform, this to be CIPM, platforms like this, to engage, interact, and collaborate with the regulators. Because indeed, we have to work together to make this work. And if we don't pay attention to make it a platform to work together, to feedback, I believe that giving a lot of feedback to LRIS today is in a way going to benefit us in return. So we've got to seek that platform and that fora such as this to interact and provide the feedback, working together to ensure that we pay our taxes, we obey the regulation, and at the same time, we're doing it in a manner that is balanced and all stakeholders are absolutely happy to be a part of this regulation. Thank you.
Round of applause. I want Chukwuemeka, your parting shot in 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. So, like she said, it is important that we understand tax laws. Like, is it that when I get the mic, the mic goes off? Like everybody wants to do, they don't want to pay one kobo above what they are supposed to pay. And I'm happy that even our tax administrator said they don't want to collect one kobo above. I don't know if it's true, but at least he said it. So it's important that we understand, our tax laws. And also one thing he said, which is very, very key, ask questions and demand accountability. That's really the reason why our leaders, don't, because nobody asks questions. Things go bad, we let it fly. It go better, we always, that things will get better. So when things go wrong, ask questions. Our tax laws, many of them are old, many of them we don't. In other countries, they reform their tax laws almost on a yearly basis. Kenya does it. It can't be done in Nigeria. So when you have all these things that you think don't make sense, we can set up forums like this, pressure groups, ask questions, and demand accountability.
Thank you, Chukwuemeka. And I think, based on what you've said about demanding accountability, we can begin to sign a 1 million man signature to be able to demand that things be done. Okay, I think CIPM will lead a lot of things. This conversation does not stop here. We have Twitter handles, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn. Please post it online because we want to put together, a succinct and complete and yet comprehensive document that we can push even to, the right, platforms and channels that they who should hear should hear. Okay, they who should hear. I will end with you, sir, because you are the. I want Barrister Tito Logo to please give you his own potential before.
We have a short time to stay on earth, even if you live to be 200. Can we all enjoy the environment that God has put us? And that obligation is on everyone, government, the people. And I thank CIPM for adding value to people. God bless you.
Thank you to everyone for this opportunity to be here. And I think we are all agreed, that we need to pay our taxes and we need to fully disclose our income because the constitutional provision, and also that the government has an obligation to utilize, because it's a constitutional provision as well, to utilize it. And then every 4 years, this is working well, every 4 years, opportunity to actually select our leaders, to those who will manage our funds. So I think the responsibility we have is that to ensure that we put the right people in government and that we will demand from them that they must use our collective funds effectively and judiciously. And as a parting shot, I heard what Barrister Lowu said, but the truth of the matter that there is no free lunch even in Freetown. Now, because even in Bahamas, what you find out is that you say, yes, you don't pay taxes,
but it's there in the cost of the goods, because there was a program that was done by BBC which shows that even products that were in Tesco that has already suffered 20% VAT is cheaper than what they were selling in Bahamas. So you see, that's the truth of the matter. Every society, every animal society, even including the animal world, where you have organized society, the ants, the termites, you see people have to contribute. And that essentially is what tax is all about. It's the price for a sane society. Thank you.
A round of applause. I think it's a convenient point to put a stop to this session. Please don't forget that we have a second session. But before I close this session, I want to say thank you to Mr. Chukwuemeka Chime. Please, a round of applause of PwC. I want to say thank you to Mrs. Funke Amobi, Standard Advocacy. Thank you very much. Barrister Advocate. And I will not forget also to say thank you to Mr. Abidin Akode, Special Advisor to the Executive Chairman, LIRS. And I also want to say thank you to everyone seated for being a good participant. Thank you and God bless you.
Let's put our hands together as our panelists go to their seats. This has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you very much. Just some quick announcements. Like my co-moderator said, this conversation continues online. We are using the hashtag Cipm Advocacy on our Twitter handle. So please, you can join the conversation. And you can still send us questions and comments afterwards. We did a game earlier in the morning. I'm still in the mood to give out gifts. The challenge was for us to find 5 new friends, 2 fellows, 2 full members, and 1 associate. So who wants to get my gift? Interesting. So people took this challenge very seriously. Okay, I would have the gentleman in the blue suit and pink shirt. Sir, you can come. Let's put our hands together for him as he comes to the front. He's made 5 new friends, 2 fellows, 2 full members, and 1 associate. So you can go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, good morning all. First, let me thank the organizer of this particular session.
Okay, let's pay attention, please.
As HR, we need to be up and doing, especially as it relates to the practices. Today, things are changing. The HR space is changing every second. And in about 5 years' time, a lot of change will need to be managed by HR folks here. Because why? We are getting automated. We have the challenges from AI. So I believe that a forum like this is very, very essential, and I will believe that it will be sustained. Now, to the challenge. When I came in, I was told that we needed to look for 5 individuals, 2 associates, 2 fellows, and then 1 member. And I took it as a good assignment. Now, I met one Umar Mohammed, is an AC IPM. Oluwaseyi Owolabi. I met 2 fellows, Mr. Femi Mokiko and Mr. Victor Iburajulu. And then lastly, the full member that I met is Bimbo Ilori.
Can we please put our hands together for him? We'll verify that in membership unit before I give you your prize. Meanwhile, I noticed something he did. You know, I added that he should get the membership number. So he only had membership number for 1 person. He decided to skip that bit. But don't worry, you get your gift. As we prepare to go into the second session, I want to give, some of us came in a bit late after we did that in the morning, just to stretch, like Barrister said, it's important that we stand, we stretch. I will have access to dance, but I won't do that now. Can we please just stand again for another 60 seconds? Let's move around, introduce ourselves, make new friends. As we prepare to go into the second session, that I trust will be equally very, very powerful. Please stand to your left and to your right. I'd like you to make new friends, exchange cards. The second session is about to start and it will be extremely, extremely powerful. Make sure you stand and move around. It's a good time to make friends and collect contacts, collect new cards. If you want to use the restroom, it's on the 4th floor. You just go downstairs, the 4th floor, and use the lift. But we'll start the second session in another 5 minutes. Sir. Everybody seems to want to meet barrister. I'll start collecting tax on. I was telling her that. Yeah. No, they're just introduction. Okay. Can we begin to wrap this up, please? I don't want to be the one. So we can meet you too. Okay. Can we please have our seats as we move into the second session? And then you handle your session. Speaking. You have a timer or a time limit? So I'll support. Can we please have our seats for the second session? There will still be another opportunity for us to exchange contacts afterwards. Let's please have our seats now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Can we please settle down? Let's settle down now, please. Okay, so it's almost afternoon. There are no more prizes for knowing two fellows or two members. So could you please settle down? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And welcome to the second session for today. Our friends at the back, could you please settle down, please? Hello? 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 Can you see me? Can you all see me? Can you see my voice? So if you can see my voice, please hearken to my voice and settle down, please. Thank you very much. And once again, welcome to everybody that has taken time out to be here. There's still so much noise from the hall. Could we please settle down, please? Hello, sirs and madam. Could we please settle down? We can do the introductions later. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we are welcome to the second session for today. And I don't know, I think God had a way of showing himself. He believed or he knew that today was going to be a very heated session. And so he gave us rain earlier in the morning as we are coming in here to calm down the situation. And even for those of us that missed the rain, we came in here to a pool of water. So that showed that we had to really calm down. Without much ado, my name is Zaid Kolawole, and I'll be moderating the second session for today. We've already had a very engaging and sometimes explosive session in the earlier morning, and I trust that this one will also be as engaging as the first one. Firstly, though, I would like to thank Cipm for organizing this occasion. It's not every day you see things like this, although an institute such as Cipm should be the one doing things like this, getting different stakeholders from the various areas to come together and brainstorm on policy issues. So I believe this will not be the first and the last of such engagements. And
We hope it will continue this way. So the second session, we'll not be talking about taxes per se, although there's no way you can avoid taxes. You know, they say in the US, only two things are certain: death and taxes. And we know how painful the death of any person to us can be. That is how painful it is to pay tax. You know, the Yorubas have a saying that that is, your paying tax is akin to trying to pull out your beards. Apologies to the ladies here, and that it will not be very easy for you to just pull them out. So we'll be talking this afternoon about the National Housing Fund. There's the proposed bill on it. The national minimum wage, which has just been signed into law, and I think the beneficiaries will start getting their alerts by the end of this month. Some people say it's an alarm. I don't know if it's an alarm or an alert, but at least we'll get something. And then there's the Disability Act. So without much ado, I'll call on Barrister Bimbo Atilola, who is a full member of the Institute, who is going to give us the keynote speech before we go into the session.
Good afternoon. Oh, great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I must say I'm indeed very happy to be in your midst this afternoon. Let me quickly say this, that I'm one young man who is very passionate about Nigeria as a country, our challenges notwithstanding. And I look forward to opportunities to express my view, especially my legal views especially within the workplace, on how we can make Nigeria a better place on the macro level, and how we can make our different places of work a better place at micro level. Because the mistake we all make is that when we say Nigeria is good or Nigeria is bad, it actually starts from us. At our respective homes, as fathers and mothers, we must lead by example. At our workplaces, as HR managers, we are agents of change. We manage people, we manage human capital resources. So we must start with ourselves. And if I do mine and you do yours, the total aggregate will make Nigeria a greater place. My mandate this afternoon is to discuss three major issues, especially as it affects human resource practice and management. The first I'll be talking about is the National Housing Fund. The first I'll be talking about is the National Housing Fund Bill, which was passed by both houses of National Assembly, the Senate and the House of Rep, but which happily and gladly was not assented to by the President, who is the final assenting authority. So I will quickly tell you why I said gladly and happily that the President of Nigeria refused that. Because his refusal, in my view, as we are going to see, is actually victory for Nigerian workers. What are the basic provisions of that law? The essential objectives. One is to repeal the old NHF Act of 1992 to make housing available to masses, to Nigerians, where you make contributions, then you can access funds to build houses. I have to do this because I have very limited time.
Now, under the old law, every Nigerian earning up to 3,000 naira or more per annum is required to contribute 2.5% of their monthly basic salary to the fund. But as we are going to see, under the new bill, which assent was refused by the president, you are to contribute 2.5% of your gross monthly income. Yes, gross monthly income. Now, the bill imposes contribution both on the individuals and on some selected businesses. These are still objectives. I shouldn't bother myself. Okay, we have to do something about this. Okay, while you resolve it, let me. So maybe you have to. Okay, maybe you have to wait and do that. So now the new law says, Section 5 says that every employee earning the national minimum wage, which is now 8,000 per month, is obliged to contribute 2.5% of his monthly income to the fund. As you can see, he omitted the word basic. And statutory interpretation, where monthly income is mentioned and it is not qualified, gross income is intended. So the act actually intends to tax your total monthly income. Then a very ambitious provision, Section 5 says, every self-employed persons who also earn above the national minimum wage are liable to contribute the same percentage to their monthly income. That, in my view, in Nigeria, that you cannot achieve. Now, Section 4 of the bill states that there shall be paid and credited to the fund a sustainable development levy on locally produced and imported items at the rate of 2.5% ex factory before transportation for each 50 kg of its equivalent in bulk. Now, this provision to me is counterproductive. If you try to make housing affordable, one of the incentives you should create is that the raw materials, the input into the housing development itself should be made cheaper. So when you impose additional levy or tax in whatever form on cement, naturally those costs will pass eventually back to the consumer. So it is actually counterproductive. Another very funny provision, Section 6 of the new bill states that every commercial or merchant bank and registered insurance company shall invest a minimum of 10% of its profit before tax to the fund at the interest rate of 1% above the interest rate payable on current account. Before I go into that, let me quickly mention that the 2.5 tax imposed on the cement manufacturers and importers is to be administered by FRS. So FRS is expected to be issuing also tax assessment to this industry, and this of course complicates the burden of compliance and exact more on the income of the company. Now, every commercial bank, insurance company, and merchant bank must set a minimum of 10% of their profit before tax to invest in that. It's a very ridiculous provision. Minimum of 10% before tax. Minimum of 10% before tax of Nigerian banks, including PFAs. And the law further threatens that if you refuse to comply, that the federal government will revoke your operating licenses. The first observation is this. That provision, in my view, challenges or erodes the power of an entrepreneur to determine how to spend his expendable income. Look, there are several other investment options in town, treasury bills, another option that can earn far higher. And it also attempts to reduce the power of shareholders to determine at the general meeting how they want their funds to be invested, including the power of the board of every commercial banks. And in my view, these are unnecessary provisions and are counterproductive. It also has impact on the capital market, because if 10% of our returns, which ought to be distributed as dividends, if you have compelled me to give it out to a particular scheme whose success, whose viability, whose profitability I'm not convinced with, I think it's against the. Now, so what are the impacts on the workplace? Of course, like I said, gladly the president refused to assent it, and he gave valid reasons that it will further impoverish Nigerians, it will reduce their purchasing power, and also increase cost of production for the importing, cement importing countries and local manufacturers, and he refused to assent to it. So, in my view, it's a law that is a victory for Nigerian workers. The starting point, before you can even contemplate this law, is to even make the NHF accountable under the old regime. You don't make, in my view, if not because the NSITF was signed into law by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and it became a law and it is compulsory, and the Employers Association are trying to have supported them, and they are also demanding for accountability. Left to Nigerians, NSITF should fail. Because when you look at the history of the organization, they didn't do well. But they have been made to be on their toes today, because the private sectors, Employers Association, trade unions, industrial unions, Nigerian workers are beginning to demand accountability. And I do ask questions from HR managers and accountants. How often or how fast do you get paid for compensation when you file your claims at the office of the NSITF? There have been mixed reactions. Some will tell you sharp, some will tell you not very fast. So, in a nutshell, the point I'm making is that we should review the past scheme and determine what are its success factors, what are its failure factors, what are the reasons, before we come and impose additional liability on Nigeria. And it appears there is this tendency on the part of the lawmakers and policymakers to continue to look for how to continue to exact 1%, 0.5%, 2%, 3%, and quickly establish one commission with a DG, with a director general who's going to administer the fund. I think we should look beyond that, and that all our laws and agencies are well informed before we establish them. So let's go to, please, I've talked about this. Next slide. I've spoken about it. Let's go to the next one. Now, let's quickly go to the disabilities, the law, Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Provision Act of 2018. And this has direct impact on human resources management. This law was recently signed into law by the President on the 23rd day of January 2019. And the basic intent of the law is to remove all form of discrimination against disabled people. Disability refers to any form of incapacity. It could be physical, it could be audio, it could be mental, etc., etc. So that means that disability discrimination refers to any form of discrimination against people who are disabled in one way or the other. That is, where they are accorded less privileges, less opportunities, or they are not accorded what their physically balanced counterparts are accorded. Then we have what is called disability discrimination. So the law tried to ensure in all ramifications that, one, they are given equal opportunities. And let me quickly say this, that this act actually has a foundation under the Nigerian Constitution, which guarantees equality of all persons, irrespective of your age, gender, social condition, origin, etc., etc. So it's an attempt to give teeth to that provision which is found under Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, often called Fundamental Objective and Directive Principle of State Policy, which are generally considered in jurisprudence not to be enforceable. So it's an attempt to make it enforceable that led to this law. Now, the law prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability and imposes sanctions, including fines and prison sentences on those who contravene it. The law also establishes a National Commission for Persons with Disabilities responsible for ensuring that people with disabilities have access to housing, education, and healthcare. The question is this: why should we have a National Commission on Disabilities when you can have a directorate under the Federal Ministry of Labor to do that? But yeah, I guess there will be a Director General. So, please. Next slide. Now, of importance to us, the law talks about provision of access and aid to people who has one ability or the other to access transportation facilities, to access public buildings. The law says within 5 years, all public buildings in Nigeria must make provision for easy access for people with disabilities. The language of the law in the Act is public organizations. So I'm not sure whether it's referring to public places, public institutions, or public corporations, or even public quoted companies. I doubt whether I have the obligation to provide facilities for a disabled to access my private home when I've not invited any. So, yes, and so I'm just trying to look at the objective of that law. So, because of the word public, it implies that what the Act intends is that is public institutions, public places, public facilities, and at best, public companies. I don't think it includes private homes, but it will include places with public access. So, Cipm building in the next 5 years, and you must lead by example. There must be provision to give access to people on wheelchairs. Your learning and your examination system must make provision for people who have physical impairments. You must make provision for the deaf, for the blind. And this is the only way, in my view, that as a professional institute that promotes standard HR practice, that you can lead by example. So when you publish your study packs, you should have limited copies in braids. You should have other opportunities for disabled people generally. Now, the law also talks about public transportation and bus stops, for instance, that there must be provision to aid the disabled. But let me come to the workplace, because human resources managers, we are agents of social change, and we are employees advocates. So every individual here who is an HR manager or an HR executive or plays any HR role, you must begin to put in place policies that promote equality of opportunities for disabled people. And this includes your policy on promotion, your policy on even recruitment, your policy on interview, etc., etc. Now, and this will start from incorporating a provision in your policy. There must be a provision in your employee handbook on what is your policy on equal opportunities employment, or what's your policy on elimination of discrimination against disabled people. I want to see a policy that will address how you as an employer, you have responded or you have been responsive to this human capital conscious legislation. Now, I see some funny advertisement. There was a time, I think it was Nigeria Immigration that advertised. They wanted to recruit personnel into their service, and they brought out different eligibility criteria for you to apply. You must have bow legs, all sorts. Yes, all sorts. And I recollect that a management staff of Cipm contacted me that they needed to make a public statement or a rejoinder by a letter to the advertising agency. And I was very glad. I was happy to put in place a kind of policy document which I turned in. And I understand that shortly after that the Immigration Service did another advertisement retracting those offensive provisions. And these are the roles that Cipm should be playing for international best practices in labor and employment policy. But for that initiative of the Cipm, that advert will have gone unnoticed, and people who are otherwise qualified will have been put at a disadvantage. While I agree that there are certain jobs that if you are disabled in a particular way, that you will not be able to take. For instance, you can't be physically impaired. For instance, if you are blind, of course, you can apply to be a driver or a pilot. Public policy dictates that you should not be a driver. Or you are on wheelchair. If you are on wheelchair, you will have limited roles in the hospitality industry, for instance. A lady called me sometime last year. She signed a contract to be a model for a t-shirt brand. And she told me she was pregnant. And that the sponsor were concerned that it is implied in that contract that if you are going to be a brand ambassador for a t-shirt where you should, slave. And she was saying that as far as she's concerned, it's an infraction of her fundamental human right as a woman. And I said, you are wrong. That except the drafters of that contract is foolish. That is the only way where they will not put that by taking this contract, that you undertake to continue to remain fit, that suitable, even where there is no, in fact, it will be foolish not to have express provision that this contract lasts for 1 year, during which you will not be pregnant. It is not a violation, because the nature of the job dictates that we want to show how beautiful those shirt looks in when you are. There are also some funny advertisements that come out from some HR departments in Nigerian companies. And when I see them on newspapers, I get worried. A secondary school in southwest Nigeria was looking for a principal, and in bracket it said expatriate. I cannot understand that. You are looking for a principal in a local school, and you said, and you bracket it expatriate. Now, what is the relationship between competence, capacity, and the color. But I also understand our wives and mothers. They like schools where they get there. They said, the principal is American. The principal is British. In fact, the teacher, the English teacher is French. These people have mastered our and you pay value. And I doubt if we are getting value from. So we should continue to look. Somebody will look. Even when you are advertising, hello. Even when you are advertising, even when you know that it is expatriates that you are looking for, you can say employment is open to both Nigerian nationals and expatriates. Full stop. Or we are equal opportunity employer, and employment is open to both Nigerian nationals and expatriates. Why must you now go to Nigerian factory sites and you begin to see Chinese and Indians doing many jobs that we Nigerians can competently do? But I also understand their side. When the agency or the big company that has given the job, when they go to the express road where they are working and they saw some few Chinese guys with the about, so yes, I think that they did a very good job here. So there is this impression that you go with because you saw white collar people on site. They are not necessarily better than Nigeria. If you know the qualifications, that those guys, it's just because our technical colleges are not functional. They are. Now, I've also seen adverts talking about female sales rep, females only. These are discriminatory practices that should not come from any organization that has an HR personnel or a CIPM member in there. For some reasons, you may have female staff in mind, but you leave that to your shortlisting process. Then you shortlist people. Some people even put anybody above age 40 need not apply. It's unnecessary. State the competence requirements. When you are shortlisting, you look for if it is somebody that lives in Lagos that you want, you look for those you see it in the CV. If it is age below 40 you are looking for, those are the things you leave to your internal selection process. But when your advertisement, your recruitment processes, your interview processes are such that are overtly discriminatory, you are not only violating the Constitution, you are indirectly or directly violating this new act, and indeed violating the values of CIPM as a professional. So we all know about the National Minimum Wage Act. I don't need to talk about it. It's been passed into law, it's been signed, but there are some legal issues there. Somebody called me about 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked that people are saying that the national minimum wage only applies to public sector. And I said, no, it applies to both private and public sector. And the law says so expressly. Although the law gave some exceptions, meaning that once you are an employer and you don't fall in any of those exceptions, then you are bound by the National Minimum Wage Act provisions. The National Minimum Wage Act, in my view, is even antithetical to the Nigerian federalism. If you look at the Constitution under the second schedule, minimum wage comes under the exclusive list, item 34, trade unions, minimum wage, blah, 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 blah. In my view, why should a federal system like Nigeria adopt a minimum wage system, when the paying capacities, when the generation capacities of the federating states differ. What Lagos State can pay, I doubt if Zamfara can pay. What Rivers State can pay may not be what Adamawa can pay. In my view, I think the minimum wage provision should be moved to the residual list. That is, expunge it from the exclusive list, don't include it on the concurrent, let it be within the individual state's capacity to determine. Because if you are talking of 30,000 minimum wage, in Lagos State, that is nothing. If you are talking of 30,000 minimum wage, in Rivers State, that is nothing. In Abuja, that is nothing. But it should be a big deal in Oyo State, in Osun. It will be a big deal in Kwara, for instance, in Zamfara. So, and these are issues, and you will recall that each time we want to pass a minimum wage act in Nigeria, it's surely a subject of deep controversy among the governors. Some governors will say, I will not pay. NSC will say, you must pay. So this crisis, this fiscal crisis, in my view, is avoided if we move the minimum wage provision, will expunge it and become a residual list within the exclusive competence of the various states. And if the council of the CIPM believes in this course, I think we can begin to do a private member bill and suggest it to the authorities for consideration. So the take home for me, for the HR professionals here, including the top management people at CIPM, is that we should transform to a policy initiative professional institute where laudable human resource policies, laudable workplace policies are initiated by CIPM. And with this, in my view, the entire world will reckon with you as a leading professional institute in Africa. Now, minimum wage and implications for the private sector. Well, there's an exception there that says if you employ less than 25, you don't have to, you are exempted from the regime of the minimum wage. In my view, that provision should be expunged. Absolutely. There is no reason, and if you are going to even put a threshold, I think it shouldn't be more than 5. Yes, it shouldn't be more than 5. To 25 employee company is a fairly big company. 25, and see the discriminatory regime. All tax and levy imposing statutes in Nigeria, when they want to use a threshold for application, ITF, pension, employee compensation act, they usually use 5. Indeed, the NHF Act, the National House Funding Act, the bill, did not even use any threshold, meaning that even if you have one employee, it applies. But when it comes to benefits, I don't think we should adopt this discriminatory approach. So in my view, that provision, the CIPM should do a memo forwarding a bill to amend that provision, that provision should be reduced to 5. And I think that's then HR and the instrument of change at the workplace. I've said this, that at our individual organizations, as HR personnel, we should continue to advocate for international best practices in labor and employment. We should continue to advocate for the best for our workforce, for it is in such enhanced benefit that as a corporate entity, we can get sustainable productivity and profitability. Thank you very much.
I'm not one that always say, can you give him another one? But please give him another one. Barrister Tilola has shown that he has not just the knowledge of the subject, he has also shown erudition in delivering of that knowledge. You can see he has laced that knowledge with humor and with something to take home with. You know, he mentioned it when he was talking that, okay, this is your take home. You know, when we go to parties, they give us takeaway packs. I'm sure that from these we'll have some takeaway packs that we can go home with. You know, and that is really the essence of a forum like this. You know, so that when we go back, we have some things. We have learned more now about National Housing Fund. We've learned more about the Disabilities Act. We've learned a little bit more about the Minimum Wage Act and its implications. And earlier in the day, we learned a little bit of taxation. And I'm not surprised that he's an associate of the Institute of Arbitrators of the UK. He's also an associate of the Institute of Taxation. So he has brought all that knowledge to bear. And we would like to thank you very much for your contributions today. So I'm sure a number of things will be agitating our minds. We'll have a few questions we want to ask and a few contributions we want to make. But before we go into that, please prepare your questions. Keep your gunpowder dry. You can fire him. I will be off the firing sticks very soon. But a few of our very distinguished personnel will be on the I table or the I chair, as my other colleague said earlier, to further discuss on these issues and bring fresh perspectives and their take on them. Firstly, we have Dr. Musa Rabi, who is a fellow of the Institute. Dr. Musa Rabi. Yes, sir. I think Dr. Rabi is fairly well known to many members of the Institute. You are very much welcome, sir. We also have Barrister Femi Mokiko. You are welcome, sir. Barrister Mokiko is a fellow also of the Institute. So this panel is a fellowship, I must say. Because the next person coming up is also another fellow of the Institute, Mrs. Omi Fapawo. And to get the employer's perspective on this, we've actually invited the DG of NECA, who is here represented by Mr. Wale Smart Oyenide, who is the head of membership services. Mr. Wale Smart Oyenide, please. You know, the Bible says the first shall be the last. So I will start with you, Mr. Oyenide, to give us firstly your perspectives on these three acts that we have just gone through, and quickly from the employer's perspectives, what is your take?
Thank you very much. And once again, let's congratulate the Cipm for this wonderful session. The three issues at stake: the national minimum wage, the Disability Act, and the third one, National Housing Fund, the new National Housing Fund Establishment Act. And if you sample opinions, everybody have different perspectives to it. But let me say first that when the National Housing Fund Establishment Act came up, you first have to understand the dynamics of lawmaking. Then you have to understand the process of the advocacy that goes into it. And also you have to understand the challenges of advocacy in this environment. There was a public hearing which we were part of. The employers, NECA was part of the public hearing. We made presentations. Other stakeholders also made presentations. Then the National Assembly harmonized those views and they sent the bill to the president, the bill for his assent. And through legislative observatory, we realized the bill that was sent to the president was different from the one that was discussed at the public hearing. And we raised issues. NECA, other stakeholders raised issues. We wrote to the president, drawing his attention to those shenanigans. We wrote to the office of the vice president, letting them know what was discussed is different from what has been sent to the president. So magnanimously, the president sent the bill back. And that is not the first one. There is a federal anti-competition and consumer protection bill. Also, it was discussed at the public hearing. I was represented with the presentation. And the bill was sent to the president for assent. And through the same legislative observatory, we realized a provision of employers or businesses, private businesses, will make a contribution of 0.5% of profit after tax to fund a commission that will replace the Consumer Protection Council. So also we went to the public space, did advertorial, wrote to the vice president, wrote to the president that please don't assent to this bill. Because what was discussed, it has been tampered with. Also, the president withdrew assent and sent the bill back to the National Assembly that made council with the objection. After the due diligence was done, the bill was passed in February. So for us, it is an ongoing battle. The Federal Anti-Competition Bill has been passed. Our committee of company secretaries and legal advisors, they are looking at it. The National Housing Fund Establishment Act, we have raised objection. The president has sent it back. Yes, we are part of the process, but my principals are not shy of challenging the process. We challenge the National Assembly for incursions to business rights. We have challenged agencies. We have about 5-6 cases against the National Assembly because of we believe we've gone beyond what the powers that the law gave them. For the national minimum wage, if you recollect, statutorily we are at the top leg of the tripartite, the employers, labor, and also government, and we played our part in arriving at the 30,000. I will not be emotional about it. If you put in the context of the structural defects, if I will call it, of the structure we live in the country, and the barrister was raising issues concerning the question of leadership. Everything flows from the leadership. If it is not right, then the chances of you building, if the foundation is not right, what you will build might be faulty. So the process of legislating as its challenges, in Nigerian, there's been attempts to reduce over time. And I can tell you, after all stakeholders did all their best to review the labor law through the help of the ILO, the bill is still stored at National Assembly. So the National Assembly have refused to look at it. Even when the Ministry of Labor is part of government. So it's very difficult for them to pass a bill that will be of national concern to everybody. So it means to a large extent their interest, to a large extent is not our interest. So those are the challenges. But by and large, the minimum wage law, I think we have a copy of the act. We'll share the copy of the act once my principals give them quiet. It's something we can start with. It was 18,000 before. And the question of some states cannot pay, for us, it doesn't arise. Let's reduce the waste. Let's reduce the literalness of government. Then those states, and let the governors make their states more viable. Everybody can be ready to put out money. Pardon me for my language. Any dumb person can wait for application from Abuja and share it. Anybody can do that. So let them be innovative, let them be creative and make those things. It mentioned the issue of Zamfara. We never knew there is so much resources in Zamfara until they should buy the scheme up. So for us, it's an ongoing issue and calls for something from all of us. We cannot just be here and say we'll advocate, we'll do this. I think the time for a strategic collaboration is now.
Thank you.
It's not about, if you can't say it's not a strategic partnership, but it's time for strategic collaboration between all stakeholders, Cipm, other stakeholders,
so that we can conserve our efforts into influencing these policies, because it's a very, very big tax. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to take off on where you landed, which is strategic collaboration, and I think that is the whole essence of us being here. We not just cause the darkness, we not just complain about what the issues are, but we bring insight into how to solve the problems that we have. I would like you to give the mic to Dr. Rabio, and I would like you to start first of all from the National Housing Fund, the botched National Housing Fund bill. I know it affects your industry, perhaps paying 2.5% of cement prices, or the cost, bearing that. So take your point of departure from there and look at some of these other bills as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished members of our great institute. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think we should commend CIPM for organizing this. I'm sure this is not the first time. We did this about 10 years ago with pension, so we should continue to do this. My intervention here today is in my personal capacity, so I'm not going to speak to the issues in the cement company or even on behalf of Dangote Group. What I would like to do, because of the composition of the audience, is to start by asking the fundamental question: why do we exist as an institute? Our role is to regulate practice of how people are managed in the workplace. So the question then is, that HC, human capital, what is it a function of? All right, and in my view, very simplistically, the human capital is a function of the people represented by the stock of knowledge or education they bring to the workplace, their health, state of health, and lastly, commitment or loyalty. So all the issues we're going to discuss here in terms of these bills or laws that have been passed, we have to see them from this perspective of how do they enable us to attract and retain and ensure that these variables I've mentioned are in the right state for the business to prosper. Having said that, we are very familiar, because we are professionals, that to attract, typically you go through this EVP, employee value proposition. 4 key areas to look at: the hygiene factor. How much are you going to pay? What benefits? That's 1. 2, do you offer an exciting career, prospect in your workplace? 3, are you a learning organization? Would you encourage learning and development? Do you allow people to make mistakes and grow out of it? And finally, the workplace itself. Do you have the right work tools? All right? So these are the key things. So you can begin to look at these issues of bills and laws in the context of these issues I've already laid out, and go to them one by one. The one on housing. I fully agree with the key speaker who said perhaps we need to start from the baseline. Where are we? What is going on? Once you have a baseline assessment of how the extant institutions and law are not helping us to achieve the needs to meet the housing gap in Nigeria, then you move to how do you amend that law? And for me, so the key institutions like the Federal Mortgage Bank, I'm familiar with what they do over the years. Do we have them in the right place? And I think this key speaker was very spot on. Are they accountable? So they are going to dispose of these funds. And quickly I go to the issue on cement, 2.5% on cement. And I think Emeka, who spoke in the first part of this program, that you are only increasing the cost of cement because the producer will pass it on. So it doesn't make any sense. All right? And it's a bit unintuitive that you'll be collecting 2.5% and then adding another one to a product that's key input to the construction industry. So that's my comment on that first one. All right, and we need to get it right. But what I would say, and I should have said that at the beginning, is that for us in CIPM, what we are doing now is post. We'll be more impactful if we do pre. So we should learn from that. We do not go after amending the law when it has been signed, assented to by the president, except the one that has not been. So we should do more of the pre-influencing than post, because it's harder to go back and begin to review what has been done. So we go to the issue of the minimum wage, or should I take disability first? I think that one is okay. In fact, it's been waiting for many years. And I've read it. We are trying to catch up best practice globally. What I think for us, the HR community, we